Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paskachada Satarani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadara Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Sukri, this is for you. Where are you going? All right, that's a good reason. Sorry about that. There are some forces that are higher even than GBC order. So the history of this is that we made a presentation, a PowerPoint, about Prabhupada's position is founder Acharya. And what makes ISKCON different, unique in the Gaudiya pantheon. And somehow or other it circulated, and devotees found it helpful. So the devotees, specifically in India, especially in India, they have to deal with this Rtvik theory. So it came up on a GBC discussion in one of our Zoom calls on Wednesday that, gee, it'd be good if we had another PowerPoint on this Ritvik, because you'll see at the end of this, there's a number of papers that this is based on. But a lot of times people don't take the time to read those papers, and how to, if there's a visual added with it, it has more impact. So they asked me to do it, and Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj volunteered to help me. So we're actually a team. He did, it's equal parts. Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj is a member of the GBC. He's mostly Germany, Central Europe. He's from Germany. Dinasharni Mataji is actually the GBC for Germany, but he's Central Europe. And he also is some far out places for Mongolia. He's the GBC for Mongolia, where we have a number of devotees. So anyway, that's the catalyst for this. And there's Prabhupada gives the example, if one's inoculated, it's Prabhupada's example, don't shoot me. If someone's inoculated, dare I say vaccinated, one is protected against disease. It's Prabhupada's example. Similarly, if someone is educated, that education, as Thomas Jefferson said, the best defense against tyranny is a well-educated public. So at some point in time, you will encounter this Rtvik theory, and it's a good idea to know ahead of time what it is. It's also good for our congregations around the world when they hear this. There's other things that come up. There's that ISKCON is the blue collar wing, we're just worker bees, and really the real thing is from the Radhakund Babajis. And what is your Siddha Pranali? What is your hey, what is your Siddha Pranali? What you're a gopi in the spiritual world, or a peacock, and and really you should just be living in Vrindavan. So there's different theories that circulate, bogus, and which will actually distract us from our natural and safe progress in spiritual life. So this is a tutorial. It's to inoculate you against this Rtvik theory, and we'll come out with more different theories, different things. Okay, so this says a speculative assault on the timeless Vedic wisdom. We've got to fix some of the formatting, but this is just the test run. What time is it now? 7:35. So let's say we started at 7:30. Okay, next. Oh, so let's say we started at, say, at 10. Oh, that won't do me any good, but that's all right, thanks. So what is the Rtvik theory? This is our little Ritvik advocate here. The Rtvik theory claims that the disciplic succession should have ended with Srila Prabhupada, and that none of Srila Prabhupada's disciples should have become initiating gurus. Next. Srila Prabhupada should have remained the only initiating guru, continuing to take disciples after his physical departure through the medium of priestly functionaries called Ritviks or officiating acharyas. Thus, everyone is a disciple of Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is the only initiating guru, and there's some functionaries who perform the ritual and connect you to Srila Prabhupada from time immemorial, from now on. Now, there's different groups. Some say, some Ritvik, there's hard Ritvik and soft Ritvik. The soft Ritviks say that, well, that's just until a self-effulgent acharya appears on the scene, then he can initiate. But until that time, then, Prabhupada's the one. So that's soft Ritvikism. Hard Ritvik is, that's Prabhupada from, like Jesus Christ. Everyone's connected with Jesus, the Christians say. Next. So, but rather the Vedic tradition is to accept a physically present spiritual master. This is the cornerstone of Vedic principle. This is one of the cornerstones of the Vedic principles. This is one point that the impersonalists, personalists, Shaktas, everyone agrees on. Everyone, if under the Vedic pantheon or the Vedic, all the different schools and groups, this is one thing they all agree on. Like they all agree in reincarnation. They all agree on karma. It's a cornerstone principle. Next. All four Vaishnava Sampradayas teach and practice the tradition of accepting initiation in an ongoing disciplical line. These are the four different Vaishnava Sampradayas: Rudra Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, Lakshmi Sampradaya, and the Brahma Sampradaya. We're in the Brahma Sampradaya. And the recent great acharyas of each line, you see them there. And they all taught this. Nobody said anything differently. Nobody introduced this idea that, oh, you take initiation only from me or, whatever. Go, next. Even the Supreme Lord took initiation just to set the example. And here we have Lakshman and Ram taking initiation from Vashishta Muni. And here we have Krishna and Balaram. They took initiation from Sandapani Muni, just to establish the principle. Next. And Krishna says in Gita, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls, note the plural, self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they, note the plural, have seen the truth. Next. And this is Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavatam. It's in his books, it's in his letters, it's in his lectures. Prabhupada was amazingly, not amazing, but was certainly consistent, unalterably consistent in his message. So one who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. Next. During his lifetime, Prabhupada prepared his disciples to take the role of guru after his departure. This is from a room conversation, July 18th, 1971. This was actually in Detroit. So this person asked, after you, is there any decision been made who will take over? Next. Srila Prabhupada's reply, it's recorded. There people were sitting. It's just, there it is. Yes, all of them will take over. These students are initiated from me. All of them will act as I am doing. Just like I have got many god brothers, they are all acting. Similarly, all these disciples which I am making, initiating, they are being trained to become future spiritual masters. Whoever is initiated, he is competent to make disciples. But as a matter of etiquette, they do not do so in the presence of their spiritual master. This is etiquette. Otherwise, they are competent. They make disciples and spread. Next. And this is Prabhupada in a lecture, 1975. We are interested in preparing acharya, guru, but the etiquette is, at least for the period the guru is present, one should not become acharya. Even if one is complete, he should not. Because the etiquette is, if somebody comes for becoming initiated, it is the duty of such person to bring that prospective candidate to his acharya. That's the etiquette. Next. And this is 1975. And to become acharya is not very difficult. First of all, to become very, very faithful servant of your acharya, following strictly what he says. Try to please him and spread Krishna consciousness. That is all. It is not at all difficult. Next. Every student is expected to become acharya. Acharya means one who knows the scriptural injunctions and who follows them practically in life and teaches them to his disciples. Keep trained up very rigidly, and then you are a bona fide guru, and you can accept disciples on the same principle. I want to see my disciples become bona fide spiritual masters and spread Krishna consciousness very widely. That will make me and Krishna very happy. Next. I mean, it's just, well, here it says, Prabhupada was completely consistent with his statements about his vision for continuation of disciplic succession after his departure. Next. I mean, as Prabhupada was preparing to leave this physical world, no one had any doubt. Dravida Prabhu was around. Was there any doubt about regular guru, that's this disciplic succession continued? I mean, it's just everybody knew. It was only afterwards this strangeness came up. Following these instructions, an example shown in Vedic culture since time immemorial, some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples after his departure became gurus and accepted disciples on their own. That's Yadavar getting Brahman Gayatri. Next. Not all of these gurus have lived up to their responsibilities, and this has naturally caused disturbances. But because Ritvikism violates both Vedic principle of disciplic succession and Srila Prabhupada's direct instructions that his disciples become regular gurus, ISKCON has rejected it. Sure, there were problems, but what is it? Negation of a negative is not negation of a positive, Prabhupada used to say. Next, and we say a little bit more here. Rather than whimsically changing the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, as the advocates of Rtvik Theory have done, ISKCON prefers to address these problems by making better efforts to follow the instructions and come to the standard he gave us. If you're not able to do it, doesn't mean the order is wrong. Let's see what the next slide is. Yeah, I think we've left a slide out here. The next slide that should be in there, it makes the point that, because they say, well, you must be doing it wrong because you've got gurus falling down. It proves that the Rtvik theory is correct, and these, that is Prabhupada's disciples taking on disciples. The fact that some of these gurus have fallen down proves that it doesn't work. But we had sannyasis fall down that Prabhupada initiated. We had marriages that didn't work out. We had huge problems with our Gurukula. It doesn't mean that the order was wrong. It means our application of the order was wrong. I mean, we had many sannyasis that were successful. We've had many gurus who are successful. We've had many. So in other words, I'm trying to think of a good example, but just because we don't carry out the order properly doesn't mean the order is null and void. It means that you've got to learn how to do it better. You've got to come up to the mark. You've got to step up. So that's the point here. So next, advocates of the Rtvik theory seek to justify their cause solely through a distorted and false interpretation of a single letter written by Prabhupada's secretary, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, in July 9th, 1977. Their whole thing rests on one letter. Although Prabhupada has been saying in his books, in his lectures, in his room conversations, whenever he was asked the question by newspaper reporters, how will your movement go on? He always gave the same answer. He always said that the etiquette is, and I'm training my disciples, when the spiritual master is no longer physically present, the disciples step up and take on disciples. And that has been the pattern, the tradition, the culture since time immemorial. You just don't when your guru is there, you bring disciples to your guru. And when your guru is gone, you step up. Okay, next. But they rested the whole, that Prabhupada completely reversed everything in one letter. What are the odds of that? Next. The July 9th letter does not mention Srila Prabhupada's departure, nor does it refer to how he intended initiations to go on after his physical departure. He doesn't say that. Here's what he says next. Srila Prabhupada directed that a number of his senior disciples should answer the letters and conduct initiation ceremonies on his behalf, with the new initiates becoming Srila Prabhupada's disciples. This is 1977, July 1977. Prabhupada departed in November 1977. So this is in the last, whatever it is, 5 to 6 months of Prabhupada's life on this planet. Presence on the planet. And Prabhupada was becoming progressively sick. He was very, very weak. And so Prabhupada, he stopped initiations for a while because the spiritual master takes the karma and the burden of the disciple. So Prabhupada stopped. And then Prabhupada said, all right, and he wasn't able to travel very much. So he said, we'll do it this way. And he named people to answer the letters, to give the names, and to initiate. But Prabhupada said, but they're my disciples because I'm still physically present. And their names were entered into Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada had a book that he kept the names of all his disciples. So their names were entered as Prabhupada disciples. So that was the system. So yes, Srila Prabhupada established a Ritvik or proxy, that's an important word, a Ritvik or proxy system in the latter part of 1977. It was for the few months he remained physically present, and because the etiquette is that one does not initiate while one's Diksha Guru is still present. It's exactly as Prabhupada said. Next. The history. Prabhupada asked the GBC members in Vrindavan to come to him with questions on any major points they wanted clarification on. The conversation, the questions, and Srila Prabhupada's answers were recorded on May 28, 1977. Not only they were recorded, they were written down and they were entered in the GBC minutes and signed by all the GBCs present in that May 28, 1977 in Vrindavan. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that you can hear the recording. You can see the transcript. You can see the page where the minutes are written, the GBC minutes. The notes are all there and written down. And Prabhupada said, come to anything that's not clear. And the devotees asked, Prabhupada, how will the books, BBT, how will the books be, the rest of the Bhagavatam completed? And Prabhupada said how that should happen. There were a few, how are the GBCs, are they on for life or should they be turned? Prabhupada answered, they should be on for life as long as they are fit, as long as they're up to the standard and doing the job. So Prabhupada get these key questions. And one of the questions they asked, well, you'll see. So then here it is. One of those questions the GBC asked of Srila Prabhupada was, then our next question concerns initiations in the future, particularly at the time when you are no longer with us. Pretty clear, huh? We want to know how first and second initiation should be conducted. Next. And here's Prabhupada's answer, recorded, written down, so many things. Srila Prabhupada starts by explaining the system to be practiced while he's still physically present. So Prabhupada explains again the proxy system, Rtvik system, that he put in place while he's still present. Then Prabhupada says, then Satsubra asks, and what is the relationship of a person who gives initiation? And the Prabhupada said, this is talking now in the future. Prabhupada said, he is Guru, but he's Satsarup, but he does it on your behalf. And Prabhupada says, yes, that is the formality, because in my presence, one should not become Guru. So on my behalf, on my order, Amara Jnana Guru Hana. Be actually Guru, but on my order. So that's the Ritvik system. Next, proxy system while he's physically present. After explaining how initiations would go on while he was still physically present, Srila Prabhupada then states how initiations should go on when he's no longer physically present. Tamal Krishna. The people who give Diksha to, the people who thank you very much. The people who they give Diksha to, whose disciples are they? They are his disciples. Tamal, they're his disciples. Srila Prabhupada, who is initiating? He is grand disciple, meaning just like you have the grandfather, you have the father, and you have son. So you have Prabhupada, you have Prabhupada's disciples, and you have their disciples. There's 3 generations. Grand disciple, and Srila Prabhupada at this time. Srila Prabhupada, who is initiating, he is grand disciple. Srila Prabhupada, when I order, you become guru. He becomes regular guru. That's all. He becomes disciple of my disciple. That's it. Okay, pretty clear. Next. But there's some trying to, next, please. Srila Prabhupada maintained the Vedic tradition. His disciples should become regular gurus with disciples of their own, but only after his departure and only if they were qualified. Next. If Srila Prabhupada were proposing such a drastic break from Vedic tradition, after so carefully presenting all other aspects of philosophy and practice, one would expect to find many statements by him on this topic. Prabhupada, in that PowerPoint we did earlier about Prabhupada's founder, Charya, Prabhupada saw his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's, he saw that Gaudiya Math unravel from being such a powerful society, institution, movement, just completely unraveled in the course of 10, 15 years, just unraveled. And so everything, establishing the GBC and just drumming it into our head that this is they're the ultimate managing authority in ISKCON. So many things, similarly how to do puja, how to do deity worship, just drummed it into us again and again. Whenever we started doing the devotees offering a sparkler, one devotee in New Vrindavan, I actually was there. The deities opened up and Krishna had all kinds of watches, had about 5 watches on one wrist, about another 5, and a couple pocket watches. What? The devotee said, well, Krishna says, time I am. No, no. And they say, ask Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no, So many things so Prabhupada and Dravida was here. Dravida knows. Prabhupada drilled it into us. So all of a sudden, at the last minute, in one letter, Prabhupada just kind of completely switch the whole Vedic tradition. What are the odds of that? It's just, anyway, we'll get into it. Yet the advocates of the Rtvik theory have never produced even one single statement. Note that, not even one single statement by Srila Prabhupada in which he says he would continue to initiate disciples after his physical departure. Next. So here we go. We're going to get some question and answer to in a minute too. Advocates of the Rtvik theory think they're glorifying Srila Prabhupada, but what they're actually saying, Srila Prabhupada was so spiritually powerful and potent, yet he could not produce one single disciple qualified to become a regular guru and accept disciples. Oh, Prabhupada was the sun and the moon, and he was so powerful, and therefore the disciplic succession said stop at Srila Prabhupada, because he was like the sun and everyone else is a shooting star. On one hand, that's true. But what you're really saying is that Prabhupada, in spite of all of his efforts, could not produce one single disciple qualified to carry on the disciplic succession. I mean, what is that? It's like you praise Krishna. Oh, you're have no arms and no legs and no form. What they're really saying is you're deaf, dumb, blind, lame. So let's just be honest about what's actually happening here. Next. Our little Ritvik friend. Followers of the Rtvik theory may believe that Srila Prabhupada accepts them as their initiated disciples, but where is the tangible confirmation of this? Rather, their view is only their wishful thinking. Next. In 1990, the GBC officially rejected the Rtvik philosophy, concluding that it violates the Vedic system and Srila Prabhupada's direct instructions. Next. GBC resolution. This is that official rejection. The doctrine that Srila Prabhupada continues to initiate direct Diksha disciples after his departure from this world through officiating priests, Ritviks, is a dangerous philosophical deviation. It is totally prohibited in ISKCON. No devotee should participate in such posthumous Ritvik initiation ceremonies in any capacity, including acting as Ritvik, initiate, assistant, organizer, or financier, someone who funds the thing. No ISKCON devotee shall advocate or support its practice. That's pretty clear. That's the GBC at the time. Next. Change the practice, and the lineage is lost. Lose the lineage, and we are lost. We be flying blind. This is the landing lights for an airplane. They land at night. They land in the fog. They aim for the lights as long as and if I go out there and say, I don't like this pattern, I'm going to make the lights paisley or, whatever it is. I go out there and mix up the lights and I make I spell out. If I were to take out those lights and spell out, well, I was going to say Hare Krishna. I don't know if the plane crashed and they were saying Hare Krishna. Okay, maybe there's some benefit. Suppose I said, I changed this, welcome to Los Angeles. Well, that's a nice greeting, right? You're landing the plane, welcome to Los Angeles, right? What happens to that plane? We do not have the right to go and scramble up the Vedic tradition, which was accepted by all the great acharyas. We don't have the right to do that. And it just causes chaos, and the plane will crash. Next, it matters. Amongst gurus in a sampradaya, the founder acharya holds a special position. He is the Siksha guru for all the following members of his line. I should say the members following his line. We have to do some work on this. But the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, well, we'll get in. I think hopefully it's clear. But it's not that people don't have a direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada. It's not that Prabhupada is a distant historical figure. Like, I'm American, but I'm born in America, but I don't really have an intimate connection with George Washington. I mean, unless he's tapas or, maybe he's governor, I don't know, could be. But you understand the principle. People do, all of us who are, anyway, I'll just go to the next slide. But all of us who are following Srila Prabhupada, all simultaneously, like a Chinda Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously, we also have, all of you have a direct connection with Srila Prabhupada. Next, and we'll get into it. Prabhupada talks about the mystery of the Sampradaya in the purport of the Bhagavad Gita 1875. And that's when it's talking about how Sanjaya was able to see the battlefield of Kurukshetra and realize all the truths by the mercy of his spiritual master, Vyasadeva. And Prabhupada goes, in the purport, he explains that although the experience was not direct, on one hand, he wasn't on the field, he was experiencing directly. And Prabhupada said, this is the mystery of the Sampradaya. The experience is direct via the spiritual master, as glasses serve as a medium to bring an object into focus. You could say, I'm looking at Govardhan, I'm sitting here. And if I put glasses, that's something in between. It's blocking, it's an obstacle. Are those glasses an obstacle? Do they make what is the purpose of the glasses? They make what I'm looking at clearer. They bring it into focus. So the medium of a physically present spiritual master actually connects us to Srila Prabhupada and makes our understanding of Srila Prabhupada clearer. So it's not that we don't, but you don't, not that you don't have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, but it becomes honed, focused, bona fide by the connection, by going through the via media of a physically present spiritual master. Next. And this is a letter Prabhupada wrote to Brahmananda confirming that you'll see, just like that Prabhupada's disciples had a direct relationship with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Just like we said earlier, there's the grandfather, there's the father, and there's the grandchild. There's the son or daughter. So that's like us. That's like you. Your sons and daughters. I'm a son. And Prabhupada's the grandfather. So here it is. You should always pray to his divine grace because naturally he will be more affectionate to you than me. Generally, one is more affectionate to the grandchildren than to the children directly. So I am sure that my Guru Maharaj will be easily inclined to your prayers than mine. You will do good always by offering your prayers to his divine grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj. So Prabhupada's confirming, yeah, you pray to him. He's kinder than me. You will get his blessings. So it's not a static or theoretical relationship. It's active. Next. This is another letter. This is to Ramaswar. My dear boys, this was after a huge Christmas marathon, 1973. Yeah, there it is. My dear boys and girls, you are working so hard for broadcasting the glories of Krishna's lotus feet. And thus my Guru Maharaj will be so pleased upon you. Surely my Guru will bestow his blessings 1,000 times more than me. So actually, those who are grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada have both blessings. They have the blessings of their physically present spiritual master who can keep them off the mental platform and keep them in line, and who they can ask immediate questions and get immediate answers. And they also have a connection with Prabhupada. So it's the best of both worlds. Next. Hey, just go back for a second. This is Yamuna Pati. Can you see? Our Yamuna. Where are we here? You see right here? That's our Yamuna Pati. This was in Detroit. Next. Krishnadas Kaviraj, who presented the deepest understanding of Lord Chaitanya and his teachings, was a grand disciple of Lord Chaitanya. He understood through his Diksha Guru, Raghunath Das Goswami. So he was not a direct disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a grand disciple. And yet, he had the deepest realization of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela and teachings. Next. Krishnadas Kaviraj, and this is Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Leela, there it is. Krishnadas Kaviraj says that he has been able to describe these 4 pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the blessings of Srila Rupa Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj was not actually a direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami, but he followed the instructions given by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Therefore, he acted according to the directions of Rupa Goswami and prayed in every chapter for his mercy. So this is another eternal principle. Next. So here we go for some questions and answers just to hone it down. So next. Could Prabhupada install a Rtvik system? Hey, you're saying Prabhupada couldn't do it? It's like, how many angels can you stand on the head of a pin? God can't do it? Could God make a rock so heavy he can't lift it? People, I mean, it's a famous, they go around and around. Something going on here? In or out, my friend, in or out? Oh, geez. The circus has arrived. Okay, just grab, please. Okay, I'm not a circus, it's a second golf. All righty, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, that worked out well. Okay, I got to remember that one for next time. Could Srila Prabhupada install a Rtvik system? Could he do it? Next. Of course he could do it, but that's not the point. Of course he could, but it's not a question of our willingness or unwillingness to accept that Prabhupada's founder Acharya could establish a new system of initiation. Rather, it is a simple question of knowing and accepting what he actually said. And what he said is, grand disciple, disciple of my disciple, regular guru. Next. Although Srila Prabhupada wrote and spoke about disciples becoming regular gurus, he didn't change his mind as he prepared to leave the planet, seeing that they were not qualified. This is their presentation. Sure, that was Prabhupada's plan. But at the last minute, in the last 6 months, he realized, oh, they're not qualified. This is not going to work. I've got to introduce a new system. In the last 6 months, Prabhupada looked out, saw the devotees weren't qualified, completely changed his mind, and only wrote about it in one letter. Okay, what are the odds of that? Next. When Srila Prabhupada, but here's the thing. When Srila Prabhupada was asked, was he dissatisfied with his disciples, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was? Prabhupada said he left early because he was disgusted with his disciples. They were all fighting over who's going to live in what room at what is it, Bag Bazaar? Yeah. But when Prabhupada was asked, he said no. Rather, he said he was satisfied. When asked if he was leaving any work unfinished, he said, yes, I have not established Varnashram Dharma. This certainly would have been an appropriate time to state that he had not been able to create disciples qualified to become gurus upon his departure, but he didn't. They said, Prabhupada, are you dissatisfied? No, I'm very satisfied with my disciples. Prabhupada, any work you haven't finished? Only thing Prabhupada said, Varnashram Dharma. I mean, it's just there. It's in black and white. Next. If regular guru is the system Srila Prabhupada wanted, why have we had so many problems with it? Okay, here's the slide. Next. We've had problems with gurukulas, sannyasis, and marriages. That we have a problem establishing the order of the guru does not mean that the order or understanding of it is wrong. It just means we weren't up to the mark. So if we're not up to the mark, we should just scramble everything up and make something easier and different and fictitious? No. What's the answer? Come up to the mark. Next. Would it have been a better system? Or couldn't we have both systems simultaneously? Some initiates can opt for ISKCON gurus. Some can opt for Ritvik from Srila Prabhupada. Next. It's like a candy store. I'll just go in and pick whatever recipe I want and hope it works. Our duty and salvation is in following our duty and our salvation. Our duty and salvation is in following the orders of our founder Acharya. Many thought the zonal Acharya system sounded great. This was if there was each zone had a guru, and if you lived in that zone, you took initiation from that guru. It was automatic. It was not an affair of the heart. It was a mechanical system. I mean, it worked for a while. Many thought the zonal Acharya system sounded great, but in time, it bore unexpected and bitter fruit. The great acharyas are trilochan. They can perfectly see past, present, and future. Again, our duty and guarantee of success is in simply following the orders of the acharya, not what comes out of our fertile brain. But what did the acharyas say? Next. Any written orders aren't written orders more important than spoken orders. The May conversation being spoken, July letter being written. I mean, nothing is direct, but this is what they make their case on. This kind of, sophistry? Like a sleight of hand. So, well, wait a minute. They've discovered something, that the May conversation was spoken, but the July letter was written. Of course, they completely discount what was written in the Prabhupada's purports in the Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. That they just bounce over. But anyway, next. Guru Mukha Padmavakya. Narottam Das Thakur enjoins us to be purified by the words emanating from the mouth of the spiritual master. So why are you creating this false dilemma that somehow or other what the guru speaks is not as strong as what he writes? Where do you get that from? Also, the May conversation was not just any conversation. It was an extremely formal and sober discussion. Srila Prabhupada personally petitioned the GBC to meet together, decide if there were any important issues that needed further clarification before he departed, and then to come before him and discuss those issues. The questions were in writing. The answers were written down and entered in the GBC minutes book and signed by all GBCs present. I mean, that's a pretty solid, it's a very solid legal case. Next. I mean, if you went into court with that evidence and somebody said, well, doesn't the July letter prove that Srila Prabhupada wanted a proxy system? Next. It proves that he wanted a proxy system for the remainder of the time he was physically present on the planet, as everyone has agreed. We've all said that all along. It was intended as a time-bound system put in place until Srila Prabhupada's physical disappearance. Because in the etiquette, you don't take disciples when the spiritual master is physically present. Next. Srila Prabhupada's will. They're just grasping at straws here. Here's another straw. Srila Prabhupada's will mentions his initiated disciples. Doesn't this indicate that even in the future, everyone will be Prabhupada's disciples? Because Prabhupada talks about trustees for the properties will be my disciples. Aha! Because 5,000 years or 500 years or 20 years from now, they will not. They'll be disciples of his disciples. So, but why does he say my disciple? They found the secret. Next. Again, the history and context shed light on the situation. Review of the conversations surrounding events shows Srila Prabhupada's concern with. So in other words, you've got to look at context. You can't just take a sentence or 3 lines out of a letter and just say, oh, that might mean this. What's the context? What's the history? So, review of the conversation surrounding the event of writing of the will shows that Srila Prabhupada's concern was that the trustees and directors be initiated devotees, not merely top donors or friends of the movement. So Prabhupada kept saying, he didn't want boards and directors of the properties just to be friends of our society, because friends can change. And he wanted initiated disciples. However, one could then ask, well, why use the word my? Why did he say my disciples? It doesn't just say initiated, it says my initiated disciples. Surely this means that all initiation in the future will be direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada. But remember, at the time, here's the thing, but look at the history and the context. But remember, at the time, everyone was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. All the names listed as trustees and directors in that will were, in fact, Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Next. Additionally, the future of a world without Srila Prabhupada being physically present had not yet become a reality for his followers. It was practically inconceivable. Although Prabhupada was 81 years old. I mean, we were thinking that Prabhupada would live forever. It wasn't logical, right? You remember that, Dravida? Thinking of a world without Srila Prabhupada, it just wouldn't process. So, and Giriraj Maharaj, you couldn't ask for a better source. Giriraj Maharaj, who was intimately involved in drafting the will, recalls, quote, "We weren't used to thinking like that. In retrospect, it was very naive." So the idea of thinking, they just used it was natural. My disciples, everyone in the will was an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Okay, next. You have to look at the context. As presented earlier, ultimately, all future initiated devotees are disciples of Srila Prabhupada. That just like we were explaining, disciple, grand disciple, we're all connected to Srila Prabhupada, just as we're all connected to Rupa Goswami. So, and all the Goswamis and all the different, there it is. As presented earlier, ultimately, all future initiated devotees are Srila Prabhupada's disciples, in that they are following him and connected to him via the Guru Parampara system. In this sense, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, because remember, Prabhupada said Krishna Das Kaviraj, although he's initiated by Raghunath Das Goswami, he was actually a disciple, Prabhupada says it, because he was following Rupa Goswami. One can become not only his disciple, but at the same time the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the 6 Goswamis, and all the acharyas in Srila Prabhupada's line. When we're connected to the line and following purely, we are a follower or a disciple. Just like one could say one's a disciple of ballet, or one's a disciple of some philosopher. You're following in their line. Next. The will states that the system of, here's another one, they're grabbing at another straw. The will states that the system of management should not change. Doesn't this mean no change from the proxy system established in the July letter? We've already made it clear, and Prabhupada made it clear, that it was a time-bound system while Prabhupada was still on the planet the remaining 6 months, and once Prabhupada was not physically present, because the etiquette was you bring your disciple to the acharya. So it was a time-bound system. But they're saying, no. See, Prabhupada says no change, and it's a change. Next. The quote is taken out of context. In the will, system of management refers to the management structure of ISKCON. A change from a proxy to a regular gurus does not change the operational procedures for the management of ISKCON. Don't change. Prabhupada wanted a GBC. He wanted property trustees to protect the properties. So many different things. Prabhupada, here's how he wanted the Bhagavatam finished. Don't change. That's what he was talking about. Rather, this tradition of from proxy to regular guru is the traditional evolution that has taken place since time immemorial when the Diksha Guru is no longer physically present. At that time, the responsibility to carry on when the spiritual master is no longer physically present, at that time, responsibility to carry on the disciplic succession is naturally transferred to the shoulders of qualified disciples of the Diksha Guru. Next. We're almost done with the questions. Srila Prabhupada said, when I order, you become Guru. Well, when did he give the order? Prabhupada says, when I order. Aha, well, show me the order. Next. Taken out of context. This sentence would seemingly point to a future order. But in fact, Srila Prabhupada made this statement in the context of the May 28th conversation as part of a detailed explanation. They've taken one sentence out and twisted it. But if you look at what Prabhupada actually said, you look at the sentence before, the sentence after, just previously in that conversation, Srila Prabhupada had said, so on my behalf, on my order, Amaragya Guru Hana, be actually Guru, but by my order. So Prabhupada had given the order in his books, he'd given the order in his letter, he'd been given the order in his conversations repeatedly. He gave the same order. When you become qualified and become Diksha Guru, but out of etiquette, don't do it till I'm not physically present. That was the order. It was a perennial order. Next. That order is on all of you. What about this is the last one, I think. What about the Topanga tapes? Didn't Tamal Krishna Maharaj reveal that there was a conspiracy to cover up Srila Prabhupada's desire for a proxy system? This was some years after Prabhupada's departure. There was a conversation, there was a home program, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was reflecting on things. So they thought, aha, this is proof. But here's what he actually said. You can get the tape, you can read it. Next. In the Topanga conversations, Tamal Krishna Maharaj says that it was a mistake to not expand the number of gurus sooner in ISKCON to keep perpetuating the zonal acharya system. He concedes that the zonal acharya system was wrong. He says that Srila Prabhupada wanted all of his disciples to become qualified and become regular gurus. That's what Tamal said. He said, I was party to the zonal acharya system. We wouldn't let other devotees initiate it. I was wrong. We were wrong. That's what he says. Tamal Krishna never says that Srila Prabhupada wanted a Ritvik proxy system. It should say to continue after his presence, after his physical departure. He never said that. Tamal never said it. Prabhupada never said it. They're just grasping at it. This is their latest straw. Next. So here's the conclusion. The Ritvik advocates present a complex set of speculative arguments. They've hammered together. I mean, if you look at this picture, it's just completely, it's really complicated. You can't figure out where's A, where's B, what the whole thing is producing. So they've grabbed all these out of context, double meanings, grasping at straws, and they've stitched together this jerry-rigged structure, and they're presenting that that's what Prabhupada wanted, that everyone is his grand disciple continuing in perpetuity. Next. But they cannot provide one single piece of evidence to answer the key question. You would think they've got this whole complicated double meaning, assumptions, speculations, and they've hammered it together, this creaking, wheezing machine. And you ask him the one simple question, where did Prabhupada say that he will continue to accept disciples after his physical departure? Seems like a reasonable question, isn't it? It's the cornerstone question. They have no proof. They have no evidence. Prabhupada, I love this picture. Prabhupada, what? Come on, show me it. Next. The fact is that their whole case is built on sand. Prabhupada said, once you say 1 + 1 is 3, you can do all the math afterwards can be accurate. But it's built on a 1 + 1 is 3. You make your initial error, you're never going to be balanced your checkbook. So it's just speculation with no substance. This is a famous picture of there's a little fire in here and a bunch of mirrors and light, and it makes a little poof of smoke. It's a complicated machine to produce a reflection of a smoke. It's just smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. Next. The bottom line. Srila Prabhupada was formally asked by the GBC. Our next question concerns initiations in the future, particularly at the time when you are no longer with us. That's pretty clear. Srila Prabhupada answered, regular guru, grand disciple, disciple of my disciple. Next. And that's it. So we can end there. What time is it? Click the lights on for a second. And let's see if anybody has a question. Yes, Prabhu. And do we have the mic? Well, we'll just take a few questions. We'll take 10 minutes of questions, and then we'll be done. And I appreciate this because it's helping. This is a dress rehearsal, and we're going to polish this up. You know, I saw some things that could be added and corrected, and there it is. So yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So if Prabhupada ordered that all the GPC has to make the decision, right? So when the GPC has made the decision that they will not accept the Ritvik system, right? So then why are we still allowing...
It's a little hard to understand you. Try to make a simple question. Ask me a simple question.
So
what's the bottom line, my friend?
The bottom line is that why are we still allowing the Ritvik system people to use the word ISKCON?
No. Didn't you see the GBC resolution? We showed the GBC resolution.
Okay, I think I'm not aware of it.
We showed a GBC resolution here. This says a Ritvik resolution. I mean, we could click back to it, but I don't want to take everybody's time.
So I think I'll repeat my question, Maharaj.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what your question is.
Yeah, so why is ISKCON still allowing the Ritvik people to use the word ISKCON for them?
That's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing is, that has been... you know that it's in the Indian legal system. And frankly, you know, justice is blind. Yeah, but justice has big pockets in India. And whoever fills those pockets with money gets justice in India. So there are legal, so we filed from the very beginning a lawsuit that, you know, you can't use the name ISKCON. But, I mean, I'm just not trying to waste our time with this one. There is a devotee, Madhu Pandit, who is affectionately known as Madhu Bandit, who stole the Bangalore temple and claims that it's ISKCON, because the ISKCON name is people know ISKCON standard of deity worship, of philosophy. ISKCON name is like gold. So he stole the ISKCON name, claims that he's ISKCON. We immediately went to court to sue them. But because he has a ton of money that he's made in different land deals, which are questionable, but he's made a bunch of land deals, and he's just, you know, working the Indian law system. There are cases in India, many cases, where both parties have died, and the case is still going on. Isn't it? Anyone who knows the Indian legal system, it's just unbelievable. So it's grinding its way through the Indian legal system. But as far as ISKCON proper, no, nobody does it. And whatever people want to do outside ISKCON, you know, there's people who believe all kinds. There's people who think that, you know, Mayor Baba is God, or, you know, whatever people want to think. Prabhupada told the devotees they were preaching impersonalism. Prabhupada said to them, north, east, south, west, pick a direction, but not here. The sign on the building, I mean, honesty in packaging, the sign in the building says ISKCON, founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. So whatever people want to believe outside in the marketplace of free ideas, say whatever you want. But in ISKCON, we follow Srila Prabhupada. And whatever Prabhupada says, we can take you right to the statements in Shastra and by the previous Acharyas. So we stand, what is it, Guru Sadhu Shastra. The house of ISKCON rests on Guru Shastra Sadhu and the direct words of Srila Prabhupada. So we're not, you know, whatever you want to do, it's a free world. We're not trying to... You'll never find us at a Ritvik event or a Narayan Maharaj event. You'll never find us out there putting flyers on the car and, you know, trying to steal people. You'll never see us doing that. We're happy in our ISKCON house and confident on our path. I mean, we had some Narayan Marsh folks come down here and put flyers on all the cars of our Sunday feast. You know, that ISKCON is bogus and, you know, that none of them are, you know, whatever. You can't get pure Krishna prema. And it always, people can do whatever they want. And we don't focus on it. We focus on the positive message of Srila Prabhupada and maintaining in Prabhupada's ISKCON, Prabhupada's words as founder Acharya, Prabhupada's practices, Prabhupada's teaching, Prabhupada's, you know, that's what we follow. And let other people do whatever they want. So I don't want to spend any more time on Madhu Pandit. Anyone else have a question? Yes. Oh, Ram.
Now, I was just wondering, the point was being that disciples don't initiate with their spiritual master still present, but
you know, my neighbors, they had a birthday party last night.
That's okay.
So I'm working on 2 hours sleep. Say it again slowly.
The disciple doesn't initiate in front of, I mean, well, the guru is still alive, but we have some exception in ISKCON. So I was just curious to know about that part.
I still didn't hear what you said.
There's some exception in ISKCON, but the general principle is that the disciple doesn't initiate while the guru is present.
Yes, we have made some exceptions.
Yeah.
For example, Naranjana Swami. Have I got that right? Oh, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. So we let Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj initiate because we didn't have enough Diksha gurus. And his spiritual, who was he? Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj is initiated by?
I think Radhanath Maharaj.
Huh?
Previously, Harikrish Prabhu. I think.
Radhanath Maharaj. Yeah, and so we made an exception for him. And there's somebody else we made an exception.
Kadambakanan Prabhu. I mean Maharaj, Kadambakanan Maharaj.
Yeah, there were some, by the permission of if one's guru, one's Diksha guru says, hey, I need help, please, will you initiate on my behalf? Will you initiate? There's been some exceptions made in ISKCON, sure. And you know what the message really is? We need more Diksha gurus. That's what worked on me. I avoided it like the plague. And finally, Shiva Ramash called me in a room, and he'd been working on me for a couple of years, and he finally said, you do it, and you do it now. He's my sannyas guru. And he presented this. Come on, who else is going to do it? When we got sincere people all over the world, you know, man up. It worked. So, does that answer your question? Yeah, some exceptions have been made. But very, very carefully with the discussion, it requires a 3/4 vote of the GBC. Because Prabhupada said the GBC determines management, siddhanta. So if the GBC with a 3/4 vote had said, well, you know, we think that Prabhupada actually said Ritvik, we would have said that. But it was unanimous. No. So we have made some exceptions in the practice of initiation. For example, the etiquette that one does not take initiation in front of one's spiritual master. The etiquette is you bring them to your spiritual master. In the case where there were so many people, we made an exception. With the 3/4 vote and formal discussion and much thought about it, we did it. So you're not comparing apples to apples. No, it's a good question. These are good questions, don't get me wrong. Anything else? Okay.
I'm wondering what the primary motivation is to be Ritvik. If it's clear that the philosophy is very shaky, why be one?
Let me be kind. I can be occasionally. You know, it's here they're missing the point, frankly. Let's assume, and I think it's true in most cases, let's assume sincerity. And often before they know ISKCON and how we, you know, and they haven't really studied the matter carefully. They've only heard this one system. And yeah, that I can be a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, well, why not go for it? So it's you know, there's no question that Prabhupada is an empowered Shaktivesh avatar, so why not be his direct disciple? You know, sounds good. But they're missing the point that they can also, like, how do you make a rope strong? You bind many threads together, isn't it? The more threads, the stronger the rope. So all of you have a direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada. You have, as we showed it, numerous examples. In Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, so Prabhupada writing himself, that you can pray to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was saying to us, the grandfather is more merciful than the father. He's more inclined. He's 1,000 times more mercy. So all of you have a direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Whatever the Ritviks say they have, you also have. But and you also have a direct relationship with initiating spiritual master. So you have both. It's not that you got to pick one or the other. Well, I'm not really connected to Prabhupada, and I got this second-rate guy who's going to try to, or late, whatever it may be, is trying to help me out. So I got a second-rate ISKCON guru, or I could have Prabhupada. It's a false dilemma. It's a false choice. What you actually have is a direct relationship with Prabhupada. You can pray to Prabhupada. You're going on by Prabhupada's mercy. But you're also getting the mercy and direction of a physically present spiritual master who can say, hey, you're on the mental platform, buddy, which is important. Well, I'm thinking about, dumping this wife and I want to marry this wife. Or, oh, I'm doing important service here, but, I want to go chant Hare Krishna in Radhakund for 6 years. You'll have a spiritual master who says, no, don't do that. Well, Prabhupada told me to in a dream. If you're a Ritvik and that Prabhupada came to me in a dream. Okay, well, that's what you do. We've dreamed so many things. Or I think it will be good. What did Prabhupada say about I think? If you say I think, if you start a sentence with I think, what did Prabhupada say about that, Dravida? It's closet talk. Prabhupada said, go into the closet and shut the door. I think. I remember giving class, a talk one time, and just for fun, because they were all smug. It was the top university in Colorado, UC Boulder. And, we've gotten a lot of devotees. It's a nice, but they're quite proud that I go to UC. Like people say, oh, you go to San Diego State. Well, but I go to UCSD. You're at Princeton. Well, I'm at Harvard. So where was I going with that? I was giving a talk at UC at Boulder, and I said to them, some guy said, well, I think, he kept saying, I think, in my opinion. I said, you know what? I said, I know this is going to rattle your cage and, whatever it is, everyone's self-affirmation. But to tell you the truth, what I think and what you think and what all the other people, doesn't matter a fig. Oh, you could hear a pin drop. They were shocked. I said, who am I? Who are you? I don't even know what's happening on the other side of this wall. There's, if you actually think, when they scope out, you see your street and your house on Google Maps, and you can scope out and you see the state, then you see the planet, you can see planet, you can zoom out and you see our solar system. Ultimately goes all the way out to the Milky Way. Talk about a sense of Trinadapi Sune Chena. Our whole universe is like a grain of sand on the beach. And we've got little Badrinarayan Swami says, well, I think. It's profound arrogance when you really get down to it. So, if one has we have both, that's my point. A physically present spiritual master, you know that you're talking to him and he's hearing and he's giving a direct answer. He'll tell you, no, that's a bad idea. Naranjana Swami, and we'll end here. Naranjana, and this is one more question, but Naranjana Swami, completely saintly person. We're in Mayapur. He said, Badri, let me show you something. So I came over, and he said, how do I answer this letter? And the letter was from one of his disciples in the Ukraine, and it said, oh, Gurudev, they always start with a flowery begin. Oh, you're the lotus of my life, you're the sun and the moon, okay, fine. Got all that out of the way. Got down to his real message. I know you told me to stay here, but I'm going there. I know you told me not to do this, but I'm going to do that. I know you said this, but I think this. Please give me your blessings. So Naranjana Swami said, what do I do with this letter? He said, all the things he's thinking about are bad ideas. And I told him why it's a bad idea. He's going to go right off a cliff. It's not going to be good for his health. It's not going to be good for his family. It's not going to be good for his spiritual life. Don't do it. But he's attached. If I tell him don't do it, and he does it, then it's gur aparat. If I tell him it's okay that you do it, I'm pushing him right off a cliff. He said, how do I answer this thing, you know? So, but a sincere disciple hears from the spiritual master, and of course we have a duty to give logic and reason and explanation and show in Shastra. But ultimately, when the guru does all that and says, don't do that, do this, that's what we should do. And that's the benefit of having a physically present spiritual master. It doesn't mean you don't have Prabhupada's mercy. It doesn't mean you don't pray to him. It doesn't mean he inspires you within the heart. It doesn't mean you lose any of that. But you get off the mental platform. Does that answer your question? So people, they've been brainwashed to think that they're not getting Prabhupada's mercy. They're making an either-or choice. But really, in ISKCON and the traditional system, you've got the mercy of your physically present spiritual master and the mercy of all the acharyas in the disciplic succession. You got the best of both worlds. Okay, I think we should end there because of the time factor. Is that all right? All right, Prabhus. Hare Krishna. Just remember it next time somebody hits it with it. And thanks for being a test audience. I'll go back and Bhakti by Bob Marsh and I'll hone it up.